Good evening. You're listening to the MBBC's election coverage of the devolved elections. I'm Twisted Nuke. It's been 6 months since the last devolved elections. In Scotland, we have seen a two-party government become one, as the Greens and the SNP merged for a second time into a single party. Will they retain their majority in Scotland, and with it the keys to Boot House? Or will it be the turn of Dunks 11 or El Chapotato to form a new coalition to take over the post of First Minister? And in Northern Ireland, will the Nationalist side consolidate their weak position with only a single seat? And will Stormont even be able to function for this term? Where will the former DUP support go? Will it transfer to the Ulster Unionists, consolidating their base, or will the classical Liberals provide an unexpected change in power for the Unionist camp? Tonight, we will have these results that will make groundbreaking changes to the devolved nations in the United Kingdom. I'm joined in the studio by the SDLP leader, Viljo, and I was to be joined by the cousin of the former Commons Speaker, Indigo Rolo. Unfortunately, we have just been alerted that he has been killed in a car crash, and so we are going to be replacing him with the Green Principal Speaker. So, good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, to run everyone through the election system we'll be using tonight, there are two different election systems in play this evening. In Scotland, there is a system called MMPR. This is where there are two selections that can be made for a local constituency candidate and a list candidate. The lists are groups of parties that have stood, and this helps produce a proportional result, or reasonably proportional. In Northern Ireland, a system called single transferable vote is used, where each individual candidate is ranked and then is slowly eliminated through rounds. We will go to Northern Ireland as candidates are eliminated. So it will appear that rounds are being skipped, but that's because in those rounds, I apologise, we're going to go to Northern Ireland when candidates are elected, not eliminated. So what that means is we will only go over when someone's actually been elected. So, without further ado, we are going to go to our first result, which is in Glasgow. And in Glasgow, we've seen that the Greens have managed to hold on to their seats here. They've managed to hold, beating out Viljo into second place, a majority of 52,173. Viljo, can you give us some analysis on this seat?
Sure. We always expected the Greens to hold the seat, with initial polling putting the First Minister at 61.4%, with myself at 17.3%. It's worth noting that the actual polling was an overestimation for the First Minister's support, and this could be reflected in the rest of Scotland.
So is it possible that the polling has overestimated the Greens' position?
Quite. We could actually see a Green loss because of this.
Well, that would certainly be interesting. I mean, a key question to ask tonight is if the Greens are able to consolidate the former SNP base. Because this isn't the first time they've merged. This is the second merger between the SNP and the Greens. And if they want to hold on to their majority, it's going to be crucial that they can grab onto that SNP support, because without it, they won't have it.
Exactly. Should we bring in a guest?
Yes, let's bring in a guest.
With us in the studios, a candidate for Green's new Principal Speaker, Toxic Transit.
Ooh.
Hello.
Toxic, are you there? Oh, it's not looking good.
It's not looking good. Maybe we should bring in another guest.
Yes, let's bring in a guest.
Room.
We'll see where we get.
It's the damn door again.
I wasn't even going to mention the door. Okay.
Someone's figured the door.
Yes,
With us in the studio is Labour's Malgravy.
it's actually a rich tea biscuit.
Jesus, you're loud. Okay. Well, now we've had our ears shouted down by Malgravy, let's go to our next result. Now, as I say, we'll be monitoring the situation in Northern Ireland, and it's begun. In Northern Ireland, we've seen the UUP have had a very strong showing in the first round with 431,131 votes to them. The Greens in second place, but quite a way behind. And that's meant that they've managed to get not one, not two, but 3 of their candidates elected in the first round. That is quite impressive. That's a very strong showing for the Ulster Unionists. So whatever happens, we know that they are present in the Assembly, and we can be pretty much guaranteed that they will be in the next executive. Because even if the classical Liberals get all of their single candidate elected, it won't be enough to push out the UUP. So, Let's go to David Swifty, who's in the studio with us.
Hello.
So, what are your thoughts on the showing of the UUP? It's very strong showing in Northern Ireland.
Well, they were already very strong heading into the election. They campaigned well, and well, the public have took to them. Obviously, it's a well-earned victory.
Are you concerned about the Greens' ability to actually hold a seat in Stormont? Because there needs to be nationalist representation for Stormont to be able to function, and yet it's barely managed to scrape by with one seat. It's in the last time. There was a serious question as to whether the Assembly could be suspended in last term due to lack of nationalist representation. Do you think that could go on to be a problem?
No, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to. Well, we don't know how many seats the Greens are going to end up with, so we could end up with a few, and we could be able to, well, keep the executive open, but you don't really know. I don't really know.
Well, that's certainly an interesting question. Let's move on to our next result, which is in Edinburgh. Now, in Edinburgh, the Greens have managed to hold the seat of Edinburgh, beating out classical Liberal challenger Joe Phillips, with a majority of 39,465. The Green candidate Weebrew has managed to hold on to the seat. So, Viljo, can we have your analysis on this seat?
You can indeed. We always expected Edinburgh also to be a strong Green seat. Polling had the Greens at 60%. However, what wasn't expected was the total obliteration of the Labour Party, polling at 13.8%. The classical Liberals probably took quite a bit of that vote. Polling put them lower than Labour at 9.9%. So this is looking good for the classical Liberals, but even better for the.
Yeah, it's one hell of a knockdown for Labour, though, isn't it? I mean, dropping down to 7,662 votes really wasn't the way they wanted this to start off.
Yeah, you can say that again. Also noticing the LP UK's candidate with 2,730 votes, barely even making a dent in the polls.
Is that even enough to keep their deposit?
I'm not sure it is.
Oh dear. Well, I hope that internal party austerity for the LP UK hasn't cut the deposit fund, because otherwise they're going to be in trouble. That would be a terrible tragedy. The Conservatives' sort of middling result. It'll be interesting if the Conservatives are able to hold on to their existing seats, because it wasn't looking too good for them in the polling that they had. I mean, one of their key seats will probably be the Borders, where it looked like quite a tight race. But they'll be seeing if they can try and hold that, and it's looking in serious doubt from the polling as to whether they'll be able to. So, should we have another go with Rich Tea Biscuit?
Yes, hello.
Hello. So
I'm not too loud again, am I?
A bit too loud. I'll turn you down. Hang on. So, what are your thoughts on the development of the evening so far?
Well, it's quite early on so far, so we've still got a lot to look forward to. I am confident for Aberdeen.
Were you confident for Edinburgh?
No, I wasn't.
What do you think went wrong in Edinburgh? Because that was quite a drop from your polls.
Well, I don't think the local campaign was as active as it could have been. So I think that's something to look forward in the future. Whereas in places like Aberdeen and the Borders, we had a very active campaign, and I think we're looking forward to what comes next. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your contribution. So let's move on. So we're going to Ayrshire now. And now. In Ayrshire, we've seen perhaps a more reassuring result for Malgravy, and Labour has managed to hold, with Will Shakespeare 99, managed to hold on to the seat. Now, I believe this is pretty much in line with the polling that we saw, Vilja, if I remember correctly, where the LP UK and Lib Dems in that order, and with about that kind of proportion. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, we've got a substitute Viljo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Viljo has run off on us for 5 minutes. So, David, you are now Deputy Viljo. I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear.
I resign.
Oh dear.
Yeah, a good result for Will. He campaigned well.
The
He
former leader of the
deserves.
Scottish Labour Party.
Oh yeah, the former leader of the Scottish Labour Party. He campaigned well. Done a good job. He's got his MLA seat.
This definitely
MSP, sorry.
don't get too carried away. This definitely isn't looking too good for the Lib Dems though, because they've stood in 2 seats, and they're coming in from a point of view of trying to hold their single seat, and this isn't the showing they'll really have hoped for. So I mean, it's this or the Borders, or maybe squeaking a list seat. But you know, this could be a bad night for the Scottish Lib Dems. They might lose all of their representation.
Well, the only thing I can really say is they should have campaigned a bit more, and well, they didn't. So, and they were already polling pretty badly.
I heard a rumour that they originally weren't going to stand at all in Scotland, but they changed their mind to the last second.
Well, I think they should have endorsed the classical Liberals in Scotland.
Well, they did in most seats. They stood in 2 seats and endorsed classical Liberals in all other seats. Was their policy. Oh wait, no, I apologise. There was 2 they endorsed Labour in. We'll try and get the stats on which seats those were. Okay, but while we contemplate that, let's go back to Northern Ireland, shall we?
Okay.
Now, in Northern Ireland, round 2 has occurred, and a 4th MLA, again for the UUP, has been elected. Not Bono has been elected. And next under him, in terms of highest candidate ranking at the current time for vote, is another UUP MLA. This is quite astonishing. The Ulster Unionist parties have submitted 5 candidates, and it looks like all 5 might be elected. In fact, they might be kicking themselves and wishing they submitted a 6th at this rate, because this is a very strong showing for the Ulster Unionists. So they've got 4 seats so far, which is completely blown out the competition for the Unionist camp, who are only standing in 1 seat. So
did you expect a stronger performance there?
For the classical Liberals, I was hoping for one, but that's life. Yeah, we'll see where we get. Perhaps I'm currently in 6th place, so we'll have to see where that goes. You just have to see, but I am quite impressed by the Ulster Unionists' performance. It looks like they've managed to consolidate much of the former DUP base under them. And in fact, I do wonder if they had have stood an extra candidate, if they would have come out of this election with 6 seats instead of 5. I think it is very possible. But the Ulster Unionist dominance of Stormont cannot be understated at this point. It is very impressive. So let's have another guest on. David, if you wouldn't mind finding us a guest.
I would love to be able to do that, but I cannot.
Okay. In that case, let's have Snap Crackle, former International Development Secretary, Mr. Snap Crackle, join us. Hello, Snap Crackle. So, what are your take on the results so far this evening?
I'm very pleased with Northern Ireland. I'm not gonna lie. The UUP has done a great job with campaigning, and it's definitely starting to show. With 4 seats, things can only get better for Northern Ireland.
I see.
Although, I do think that others do indeed have a chance in Northern Ireland. The SDLP is definitely a force to be reckoned with in Northern Ireland, as they have also ran a very good campaign that will probably win them a seat in the time to come.
So let's assume the following: the Greens and Sinn Féin both win a seat, and the SDLP and Alliance both win a seat. Then who does the UUP end up preferring for an executive?
I believe the traditional alliance of.
I think it depends on who makes the better offer.
Oh, we've lost him. I think he's been carried away. But yeah, I mean it's interesting to think just how much power the UUP have at this point, because they've got an absolute stranglehold on the assembly even if the classical Liberal candidate is elected, there's no question that they will be leading the next executive.
My apologies. I had to run out the door for a second.
Oh dear. So as I say, I mean,
willing
it's
to work with them.
Say again.
As the classical Liberals.
well, I mean, it's not really us working with them that's the problem, because there is a unionist presence already. It's I mean, unless we're going to relist as nationalist, which I don't think is particularly likely anytime soon.
Oh, that'll be when Dunks rolls in his grave.
Well, talking of that, let's move on to our next result, Angus, Perth and Stirling. And we're also going to look at the borders. Now, Angus, Perth and Stirling, the classical Liberals have held. That is quite a majority. I think that's the largest majority we've seen so far tonight. Let's see if it can be beaten. 65,974. Seeing our Green Challenger answer me now. And Scottish Labour not in a great spot in third. Now that's quite impressive. That isn't nearly as impressive as the polling we saw, which I believe had the classical Liberals on 85% in Angus, Perth and Stirling. But that's still a very strong showing there for Dunks 11.
It is a rather disappointing turnout, though.
That is quite a low turnout. Perhaps part of that's due to the relatively limited number of candidates standing. There are only 3 due to endorsements here, so it's quite possible people felt disenfranchised there.
Well, I think he's quite entitled to say that he can't dunk the dunks.
I think personally, with such a low turnout, I think it's apathy within the electorate.
Quite possibly.
These people are going to automatically assume that Mr. 11 will win every time. And I think due to this apathy, I think in the next election, the Greens or Labour could really take advantage of this apathy.
Quite possibly, but I'm going to have to move us on, I'm afraid, because we need to go to the other result I said was declaring, which is the borders. Now this we have a slight error with the graphic. This should read gain from Conservative here. So this was formerly a Conservative seat, the borders. It has been taken by the Labour Party in a very tight 3-horse race. So we've seen here the Conservatives have been knocked into third place here, which really isn't what they were hoping for. So
well, I don't think the Scottish leaders' comments about Scotland were too welcome there.
Quite possibly, but I mean, it's also, if we can go back to the Lib Dems, it's really not looking good for them here, because this was the second of the 2 seats they were standing in. They haven't managed to secure this, so unless they can consolidate their support into a list seat, then this could be the end of the Scottish Lib Dems in terms of their representation in Holyrood. It's not a good place to be in, but we'll just have to see how that turns out. But this was a very strong campaign from the Liberal Democrats. Both of their candidates were here hitting the street, and they don't seem to have got very far. But this is definitely a seat to watch in future. It could go anywhere, because with such a tight race as this, 3 candidates with 9,000 votes between first and third. That is quite a tight race indeed. And it certainly was.
It's just a good night for the Scottish Labour.
Well, I mean, you say that, but
it's a very good campaign, and they took that seat from Tories.
Yeah, but you say that, but it's a very narrow win as well. If it was a good night for Scottish Labour, they would be hoping for more than 4,000 votes.
But it's a platform to build on future election. That's the same thing that Will done on his seat. He had a thin majority, and now he has one of the largest majorities we've seen all night.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Now gravy. So if we could have a new guest in. Let's go to Apona Corona, also known as WhatsApp 008, the SDLP candidate in Northern Ireland.
Hello.
Hello. How are you this evening?
Loving it. These are exciting results.
Quite. Well, I'm sure you'll be excited to hear we're about to go back to Northern Ireland.
Oh, great.
in Northern Ireland. Oh, you've just come onto the top candidates list, but we've seen
Oh,
a fifth
hooray.
Ulster Unionist Party. 5 out of 5 have been elected. This is really Ulster Unionist Party dominance. The next candidate up is the SDLP's Viljo, then Esteban, Answer Me Now, Twisted Nuke, and Epona Corona. So
That's not my username, but okay.
Is it not?
No, it's spelled differently.
We tried.
But...
It's looking like Answer Me Now could be on track to hold their seat, but it might looks like perhaps the Nationalists might stay stationary. There's no sign of Sinn Féin so far, because they were eliminated very early on.
It could be said it could be the Greens that the only people that are going to be nationalist entering Stormont.
Well, I mean that is a given at this point.
And that's not good for democracy.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I think.
Oh, go on.
I think this shows very good promise in Northern Ireland as a return to further stability under another UUP executive, hopefully. And time will only tell if the nationalists manage to pull something miraculous here.
I take issue with that immensely, because Northern Ireland is a place that's very fractured from the past. And the fact that the nationalists couldn't get the vote out is like massively like a problem. I just think that like to have Northern Ireland seen as some kind of dominion like Canada, but is like it's just not very it's not very good for democracy on the whole. I think that we should be focusing on trying to get those people that are disenfranchised with politics back into politics, rather than being like, oh, strong and stable executive with one half the community being represented.
Of course, other parties like the SDLP and Alliance are also welcome in Northern Ireland.
And they thought this abstentionism would get them somewhere.
They don't abstain from Stormont, they abstain from Westminster. There's a key difference there.
A point to question is this: if it with the Sinn Féin candidate being eliminated, let's say for argument's sake that only Answer Me Now is elected for the nationalist camp, does that start to undermine the political basis for the peace process if the nationalists are stuck with barely any representation?
Sorry, who are you talking to?
Well, anyone. I mean, you could go.
What was the question? Sorry.
So the Sinn Féin candidate has been eliminated. So let's assume that no further Green candidates were to secure any seats. Would that start to undermine the basis for the peace process? Because
yes, absolutely.
And so what happens then if it's stuck with only one nationalist MLA again? Like, does this start to question as to whether the peace process is viable in the long term, because effectively the Unionists have become too powerful?
I think it shows that the guiding hand above us all has underestimated how important the coming together of the communities is, and I think that the Lord up there who directs life for us all should reevaluate how they.
Our Lord and Saviour MG 9500.
I think they should reevaluate what they say,
Praise be.
and what they do,
Praise be.
and how this is calculated.
Well, after we've got a little bit religious there, let's move on to some results in Lanarkshire and Fife and the Forth Valley. In Lanarkshire, the Greens have managed to hold the seat, with Winnie Camrig seeing off Scottish Labour's challenger, Secretary Salami, majority of 31,172. And in Fife and the Forth Valley, we've seen the Greens have also managed to hold there, seeing off the classical Liberal challenger, NB Geordie. So far, this puts the Greens on 4 seats and Labour on 2 seats, with the classical Liberals holding 1 seat. So this is looking quite good for the Greens to return to boot house again. The question on everyone's lips is, will they do it on their own, or will Labour be coming with them?
Ooh.
That's the question indeed.
I definitely think that the Greens will consider something with Labour, is what I'm estimating.
I think with the amount of dissent about the Green government in Scotland, it would be good of them to reach a hand out to other parties. Even if they're over the line, it's something to help them not become ostracised and targeted, because otherwise people will lose faith in our mighty God above and how they direct life, and people might just become too disenfranchised with it and just not bother with politics.
I think we see here again the apathy that is being created by these incumbents. We only see 45% of this constituency turn out to even vote. And I think this could be marking almost the end of the status quo, because you see the Greens that have been, for the past several months, they've been unilaterally holding on to power in Scotland, and the voters are obviously rejecting that by just simply not coming to vote, which is silly.
Agree more, especially if you look at, with such a low turnout, a majority of 29,000 doesn't actually mean that much, considering more than half of voters didn't turn out. The seat probably could have gone any way if we'd had a higher turnout, and I think that is definitely to do with apathy towards the Greens.
And that's why they need to work with other people rather than think that they kind of own Scotland.
Well, for purposes of balance, let's see if we can get Toxic Transit back in. Are you with us, Toxic Transit? It's not looking good. Okay.
Hello.
There you are. Hello. Thank you for joining us, madam. So, could we have any comments on the showing so far?
I believe there's an internal party movement to closer align with Labour, closer work with Labour. So I believe that the Green Party will definitely reach out to Labour and will definitely try and work with Labour. As we see from the PS elections, both candidates want to closely integrate with Watermelon.
If that's the case in a minority basis, would it be the case if the Greens have an absolute majority in Scotland?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe that it could go either way, because stability with a single party government, or I think might be preferred, but it really depends. It's up to Rebrew, to be honest.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, and what do you think of the rather lacklustre showing for the Scottish Conservatives and Libertarian Party, who have sort of fairly consistently been at the bottom of rankings or towards the end, with not absolutely utterly destroyed, but not a great showing nonetheless.
They're not the LP UK.
Well, some people
Scotland
might
is a
want the
left-wing
LP UK.
area.
I'm not
Scotland
entirely sure
is a
who.
left-
Okay, can we stop talking over everyone, please? Toxic Transit, please go.
Scotland is a left-wing area, so it's traditionally always been left-wing. So I'm not sure that a liberal right-wing would get very far in Scotland. If you look at the history of Scotland and Holyrood, it has been left-wing. I don't believe that's going to change now.
The Scottish Tories did quite well in the first Holyrood election.
Yeah, it does seem to have been a rather sort of gradual decline, and I think what the classical Liberals may find is that they may well do quite well and gain here, but the people they need to prop up their potential executive will not be there to help them. So this is the basic trouble they'll face, in that it doesn't really matter how much the right gains at this point, because the left will gain more.
Yeah, basically. Scotland's a left-wing workers' area.
We'll have to see.
Fact.
You have to see. Never make predictions in politics. So, we're going to bring in Le Chevalier Malfate, whose name I have just butchered, who was standing in this very constituency of Fife and the Forth Valley, and sadly you won't be able to give us a live reaction on that, but you can give us a reaction on the next round of results from Northern Ireland, where we've seen finally someone who isn't from the Ulster Unionist Party be elected. Esteban 06 of the Alliance Party has been elected in round 6. So that means that we've got 2 out of the 3 bits we need for an executive. All we need is a nationalist to be elected. So it's looking like it will be the Greens. We've got Answer Me Now as the next top candidate under Esteban, who's just been elected. And then we've got Viljo next down for the SDLP, and then David Swifty for the Greens. So perhaps the Greens might be able to secure 2 seats here, which would be a step up from where they were before, but perhaps they won't. And the classical Liberal candidate Twisted Nuke is still there in 5th place, and Pona Corona, whose name I'm still getting wrong, is in 6th place. Now, thank you for joining us, Le Xavier. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello. So, what are your thoughts on the 2 sets of results so far?
I think, firstly, to point out with respect to Northern Ireland, Comte chose to stand 5 candidates.
Mm-hmm.
He could only get 5, but because he did not want to destabilise the executive, and he wanted there to be a political space for nationalists.
And where is this on record as being said?
Well, it was discussed privately, and I believe he's just tweeted it.
Okay.
So is that happy with everyone?
Comped on Twitter says, I decided to only stand 5 candidates in Northern Ireland in order to ensure that the nationalists and other communities still had enough seats to have their voices heard. Congratulations to all my candidates, and a thank you to the people of Northern Ireland for giving us this vote of confidence.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I suppose that's why he works here. Like, moving on to Scotland, that's more disappointing for conservatism, obviously.
Yes, you've lost your sole first past the post seat. We'll have to see if you manage to hold on to list seats.
Aberdeen is something that we're going to be very interested in, and we weren't keen about the borders. We knew our campaign there had problems.
I mean,
I think
the Scottish Conservatives didn't do too badly in the borders because they only lost by about 9,000 votes, but it's still not great.
Then you have some votes though for the list seats. Because I'm looking at the Liberal Democrats, like they did very well given their polling numbers, but
it still wasn't enough to translate into success. Clearly, I mean, we'll have to see. That again, they might be able to secure a list seat, but it'll be close. I mean, we could well.
My point is that the Liberal Democrats, like they've got less seats from the two candidates that are standing. So just have gotten 1 seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking too great for the Libertarians either. I mean, this could well be an electoral wipeout for them as well, because they're not scanning in Northern Ireland, but in Scotland they're trying to hold on to their seat, but their results so far haven't exactly been encouraging for them.
You've got a very spotty Libertarian campaign, but we'll have to see.
Okay, so let's move on to our next set of results. Dumbarton and Renfrew and Aberdeen. In Dumbarton and Renfrew, Labour has gained the seat from the Scottish Nationalist Party. This is effectively a gain from the Greens due to the merger, but it was an SNP seat beforehand. So this is Scottish Labour's candidate Hurricane of Lies, beating out the LP UK leader in Scotland, Paul Rand. So, as we say, certainly not the result they were looking for. Scottish Conservatives knocked into 3rd place, 27,000 votes. That's less than the majority of the Labour winner, which certainly isn't the result they were looking for. But a bit better turnout, 64%. In Aberdeen, the classical Liberals have gained the seat from the Scottish Nationalists, seeing off Scottish Conservative challenger AIF 123. This is again a very close race though. It's a four horse race, and all 4 did quite well. There's only about 8,000 votes between Tommy One Boys, who won, and Wired Cookie One, who came 4th. So that is is a very tight race there. I'm sure AIF is currently fuming.
Interesting to see that the Greens, who previously held this, under the SNP, are now the last on the list. I do wonder if that's a reflection on their government or just to do with the close nature of
I think if we look at the first results, that it wasn't really a gain from the SNP. The Green Party endorsed the Labour candidate, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's true, but it was still an SNP seat.
Yes, but it's still sort of what we intended to happen. We endorsed.
It was an orderly transfer, but it was still a gain from the S&P. It's still factual.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
I mean,
fair point. I was saying it's not a huge change. The only huge change really here is Aberdeen.
Yes, this isn't exactly the result the Conservatives were hoping for, but this may well translate to a list seat because that's a reasonable amount of support, and they've had reasonable support in most seats. Not enough to win anything directly, but maybe enough to grab some list seats, which will let them hold on to their 2 seats they currently have. But it's certainly
we have an official statement. Sorry to interrupt, we have an official statement just released by the LP UK's candidate Rand, who, as again, an LP UK candidate has lost their election. He's gutted by the result today, hopes to continue to fight in a list seat for the platform he stood on in the election. This isn't looking good for the LP UK, is it?
No, I mean, this could... they've had pretty poor showing. It's whether it will manage to translate to a list seat, particularly from his campaign, will be interesting to see. But this could be an electoral wipeout for the LP UK in Scotland, which is certainly not what they were looking for.
Just quickly come in on that Aberdeen result. Aside
Yes.
from being incredibly disappointed with AIF, I think
He's been a very naughty boy.
no, we'll have to go have words with him. But I think OHT Biscuit ran a fantastic campaign. I think polling initially under 10%. On everyone else so close, starting so poorly. I think there's a lot of credit that's maybe deserved though.
Yes, well...
I've campaigned against Poe a few times anyway, so I'll let you get on.
Thank you. Well, we're about to have a double whammy, because not only are we going to Northern Ireland, but we're going to get the first of the 2 Scottish list regions for Strathclyde and the Borders. So this is when we'll start to see whether some of these seats have transferred into actual seats in the Scottish Parliament. Now, in Northern Ireland, the counting has finished. The final results for the Northern Ireland Assembly is as follows. The Ulster Unionist Party have 5 seats. The Green Party have 2 seats. The Social Democratic Labour Party have 1 seat. The Alliance Party, 1 seat. Classical Liberals, 0 seats. Sinn Féin, 0 seats. So, here are the final results. This is what the next assembly will look like. So the only thing in question is which other party will be making up the executive. Will it be Viljo with the SDLP, or will it be Esteban with the Alliance?
Comped has gone on record to say that his preferred executive would be with the Greens Answer Me Now as the Nationalist and the Alliance candidate Esteban, but personally, I'm hoping he reconsiders his choice to be the SDLP.
Can't imagine why. I can't.
I know, nor can I. But this is a disappointing result for the SDLP. We'd hoped to have both our candidates elected, and I'd like to congratulate our candidate Emma, who ran an amazing campaign for us in Northern Ireland.
Do you have any comments, Epona?
I do. I just think it's a sad day for Northern Ireland. Like, it's just a sad day.
In what way?
Because the UUP are still, pardon me, the UUP is still heavily voted for. The nationalist movement can't really get out their vote, and we had an MLA did very little in the election from the alliance that's apparently wanting to be part of the executive from the First Minister. I just think it's a bit of a poor show, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yep. So now we're going to have to move back to Scotland. And in Scotland... I know, it's terrible, isn't it? In Scotland, we're going to see that the list results, Strathclyde and the Borders, has declared the constituent results as follows. Ayrshire, Dumbarton and the Borders were Labour. Then Glasgow and Lanarkshire were Greens. And the list results declared 2 more seats for the Greens, 1 for the Conservatives and 1 for the Libertarians. So that puts the current total at Scotland, which still remains for 1 further seat and 1 list region, at Greens on 6 seats, Labour on 3 seats, Conservatives on 1 seat, Classical Liberals on 3 seats, LP UK on 1 seat. So the LP UK are now safe from being completely wiped out. At worst, they will sit still. However, there's still another list region to stand, and Highlands and Islands. So things may get better.
It looks like that their work has at least somewhat paid off with their one list seat, but still not. I don't think it's looking good for their gains.
No, it's not looking good. Certainly the winner of the night so far we can see is Labour, who have managed to secure an extra seat above from where they were. So that's put them in a better position. And at this point, if Labour were to go into coalition with the Greens, even without the further list, they have 9 seats. So it's looking like the next Scottish government will be Green Labour, unless the Greens could pull off something pretty spectacular in the in the next list. We'll wait to see on that.
Can I mention about Northern?
Sure.
I think that it should be the Greens in the executive with the Conservatives. I mean, Ulster Unionist.
It will be, as they are the only nationalists.
It has to
As
be
the
that
only
way.
nationalist party, they have to be.
Ignore me. I don't.
If they abstain from the executive, then there won't be an executive, and then there won't be a storm on.
Which
Please ignore
would
me.
be unfortunate, because then why have I been paid so much licence fee payer money? Okay, so we're going to, if possible, get the deputy leader for the LP UK in Scotland. It's Barbara in, if she is available. So let's have her in. Hello, Barbara, are you there?
What?
Oh,
Okay.
no, it's not looking good. Okay, well, while we wait, we'll go to our next set of results, which is Highlands and Islands. This is the final constituency result in Scotland. And oh dear! And first we're going to get the mic hit a bit, and then the Greens will have gained this from the SNP. So this was formerly SNP seat, merged in, and this is very paper thin. Numbers have gone a little bit funky on the results down at the bottom, so don't worry about that. The Greens have managed to gain this seat, and they've only got a majority of 717. Now, there's a slight error in this result in that the Classical Liberals being undershown there, but because we've just had the list declare one for them, but don't worry about that. So this should be reading free for the Classical Liberals, but still, this is putting the Greens and Labour with a majority. Regardless of what happens in the list, there is a Green Lab majority, so that looks like it will be the next Scottish Government. And with that, we have completed the final Scottish region, so we can now declare the list results for Highlands, Tayside and Fife. So here we can see it. After the Greens held 3 constituencies and the Classical Liberals held 2 constituencies in Highland, Tayside and Fife, the Classical Liberals got 2 additional list seats, the Greens got a list seat, Labour got a list seat, the Conservatives got a seat. This puts the final result for the new Scottish Parliament at the Greens on 8 seats, the Labour Party on 4 seats, the Classical Liberals on 4 seats, the Conservatives on 2 seats, the Libertarians on 1 seat, the Liberal Democrats 0 seats. This is a change of Greens down 2, Labour up 2, Conservatives no change, Classical Liberals up 1, Libertarians no change, Lib Dems down 1. So what has appeared to happen is that 2 seats have transferred from the Greens to Labour, and the former Liberal Democrat seat has switched to the Classical Liberals. But still, this means that the most likely government is a Green Labour government, which would have 12 seats, which is enough to wield a majority, and would actually, in terms of their strength in the Scottish Parliament, be a step up from the previous government, going from 10 to 12. So does anyone have any comments?
There's another possible coalition between Labour, the Classical Liberals, Conservatives, and even LP UK, but I can't see such a unionist coalition being that likely given the other policy differences between the 4 parties.
Yes, it's possible, but there isn't much basis between them, and both Labour and the Greens have a stated intention to work closer with each other. However, anything could happen.
And also, we all know that the LP UK cannot compromise.
Hey, okay, in Scotland, I think we can.
Oh,
We are
yes.
we want to work. We wanted to work with the Classical Liberals and Conservatives in Scotland. That was our plan.
Well, this would require more than just working with them, because you would need to work with the Labour Party.
Yeah, see, that's the problem there too. And I know the Greens and Labor did have the intention to work together, so I think we'll probably just. I don't know what the plan is now, but yeah, it's a little disappointing. But at least we didn't get wiped out like the Liberal Democrats. So.
Yes, it's not a great showing for the LP UK, who were definitely hoping for a higher showing, but it's not been great for the Greens either, who even after merging with the SNP still have lost 2 seats. That's not a great holding. Before they could govern on their own, and now they need Labour's say.
Well, more than likely we're still going to keep FM, so it's not a huge loss, and we still come out with 8 seats, so we're still dominant party in Scotland, so it's not all bad.
That's definitely true. It doesn't look like the wind's direction is changing greatly, although I will note that this does mean there is a unionist majority in Holyrood, which was not the case beforehand. Beforehand, it was a narrow majority for the nationalist side, but with this drop in seats, the balance of power is towards the union. So that might create a somewhat greater stability there for the time being.
To be fair, though, the seats that the Greens lost, well, due to like Aberdeen, it was lost by 8,000 votes. It's something that can be overturned with a bit better campaigning next election. So it's not a massive loss. We're not gonna.
That's true, but then that would likely impact your list vote, and you have got quite a few list seats. So this is a reasonably proportional system.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait till next election to see what happens then. But for now, the Greens and the Green Party are happy with this result. We're proud of the campaign that We Brew, Bueni, Conway, and the rest of them did, and it's not a loss by any means, because, like I say, we're still a dominant party in Scotland, and we're probably going to keep FM, so it's not a loss to us.
Okay, well, with the results concluded, I suppose it's time to end the stream. So, thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much to David and Dunks for all the usual graphics work. Thank you very much to MG for all of his electioneering assistance. Thank you to our guests. And thank you to you for watching. Have a very nice night.